Firstborn Male Child by Ron Hawley. Sitting in the first-class lounge at the Portland, Oregon airport, Annie felt out of place in her simple cotton dress and cheap, imitation leather shoes. The outfit that Jerry Coy insisted on that she wear. How was it he phrased it? Dress down. I don't want to spend all my time saving you from the muggers. Of course, if he were a real detective with a badge and some authority, he wouldn't have to worry about protecting her. But real detectives don't help people find children that were given away. Real detectives don't send out budget-busting invoices. Then Annie remembered how lucky she was to be here at all, lucky just to have a chance to find the son that she gave away so many years ago. Dave, the man Annie married shortly after graduation, was sitting next to her. He was sitting in the chair with his hands folded politely on his lap. He didn't look the least concerned, but she could tell that it was going to start again. Dave turned to her. "Honey, why not wait until we can do this together? We can plan for it, take some time away from the business and do this thing right." Annie thought. How could she make him understand that she has lived for too many years with an empty chair at the dinner table? That she has celebrated too many birthdays with tears, alone in her room, surrounding herself with suppositions. Wondering what he might be like if she had raised him. Annie finally answered him. "You know I can't wait. He might decide to move on and then we'd have to start all over again. I already let him down once. It just isn't going to happen again, not if I can help it." Dave replied. "I can't help but wonder what you're going to find, honey. The boy has been nothing but trouble since junior high. Do you really think you can just show up and make everything better? What about the prison time and the drugs and all the other trouble? He just isn't going to change just because you want him to. People are what they are." Annie remained silent. Dave continued. "Geez, honey, lots of kids are adopted and they live healthy normal lives." Annie reminded him, lots of kids weren't returned to the agency like a coat that doesn't fit, just because the parents are too selfish to care for them. Dave tried to console her. "It wasn't your fault. You did the best you could do at the time." Annie thought. The best you could do at the time. Yes, it was the smart thing for a young college girl to do. Why ruin your whole life by having a baby? The baby will be so much better off with someone who is better able to take care of him. Michael was all for it. Dear sweet manipulative Michael was even for an abortion. He had done the right thing by me. He around long enough to make me believe that it was my fault that the relationship was falling apart. Then he went off to ruin someone else's life." Annie replied. "Dave, I know it seems foolish to you, but I have to see him just once more. I have to explain what happened. Just maybe he'll understand. Anyway, I have to try." The loudspeaker interrupts, Flight 203 to Los Angeles now boarding first-class passengers. Dave looked at her and said, "That's your flight, you better get going. Don't forget to call me as soon as you land." "I won't. I love you, honey." "I love you too." The vibration from the engine subsided and she wasn't pressed back into her seat any longer. God, how she hates flying. Annie passed the time going over the events that brought her to this place and time. If everything goes well, her son would be in the seat next to hers on the way back. She's been working on this trip for over 2 years. 2 long years of prying open the wall of secrecy that officialdom built around adoptions. After 6 months of hearing, "I am sorry, but that record is sealed. Or you know that you signed all your rights away." Annie decided to hire Richard Spiel, a lawyer who specializes in finding adopted kids. Richard quickly became her savior. Of course he was expensive, and there were all those checks made out to cash, but large chunks began to open up in the wall. It was Richard who traced her lost son to Hollywood, California and put her in touch with Jerry Coy. Jerry makes his living by helping parents find their kids in that city full of lost children. Annie rented a car for the drive to Jerry Coy's office in Hollywood. It took an hour of bumper-to-bumper traffic that sped along at 20 miles an hour before Annie reached the building. It was in an older part of town. An area where the rich were infringing on the poor. It wasn't very tall, only about 10 stories at the most, but looked huge because it was surrounded by older 2-story shops. Next to the office building was a pizza parlor that looked especially out of place because their dumpster was in a small recess created when the new larger building was built. The graffiti on these small shops was diligently covered over with ill-matching paint in an attempt to hide the true nature of the neighborhood. Even the hard marble facing of the newer building showed remnants of the local artwork. Annie searched in vain for the parking area, expecting it to be in front with large signs that directed her effortlessly to the safety of an underground parking spot. She forgot the directions that Jerry had given her about turning into the alley at the rear of the building. She circled the block, only to find herself in a more destitute area. Tenements stood side by side, trash littered the dirt lawns and old, junkyard-quality cars lined the street. No attempt to hide the graffiti here. 3 trips around the block were enough for her. She thought about turning into the alleyway, but no way was she going to get herself stuck in some alley, not in this neighborhood. It was mid-morning, and she didn't want to be late for her appointment, so she settled for a parking space on the street just 4 buildings down from her destination. Annie parked her car and made a careful check of what she needed for the appointment. She had copies of all the documents in the thick yellow envelope. The picture of her son, the one that her lawyer gave her. Everything she needed was in her purse. Just before opening the door, she remembered to turn her wedding ring around so that the diamond faced her palm. He woke with the ache in his stomach. It wasn't hunger because he had finished a half-eaten pizza found in the dumpster the night before. That's why he woke up here. The smell of the pizza had enticed him into this alcove, and, after dinner, he had lain behind the dumpster to get some sleep. This ache went deeper than hunger and he knew that he needed to get some money and find Tony. Tony would fix him up, make the ache go away. If he could only get hold of some money. He watched as Annie got out of the car. He spotted her in the shiny new rental car as she circled the block. He usually wasn't near this area, it was too close to normal society where cops regularly patrolled, and if they spotted him, they would find some excuse to take him to jail. Now, here she was, walking straight toward his little hiding place. What luck! He never was very lucky, but today was his day. In a few moments she would be passing by him, and, if everything went right, he would have some money, and he could find Tony and get rid of this ache. He pulled the ski mask down so only his eyes, nose and mouth were visible. Annie was looking straight ahead, concentrating on the entrance to the building. The hair on the back of her neck was bristling, her whole body tingling. She told herself that there was nothing to worry about, it was mid-morning, and the streets were deserted. Just as she passed by the alcove, he grabbed her with one practiced swoop, placing one hand over her mouth and the other around her waist, he dragged her out of sight, behind the dumpster. Annie felt herself being dragged backwards into the alcove. Her body just went limp, complying totally with the demands of whatever had a hold of her. The pungent smell of stale grease, urine and tobacco filled her nostrils. Her mind was racing. Where is everyone? Why doesn't someone help me? He had her exactly where he wanted. Out of sight behind the dumpster, he had complete control of her. That's right, bitch. Don't fight me or I'll kick the crap out of you. Still behind her, he let go of her mouth so that he could grab the purse, but Annie clutched it even tighter. Annie thought. Not my purse. Not the envelope with all the papers and the picture and everything I need to find my son. Here. Take my money, you can have all of it, just please don't take my purse. Annie looked down to find the clasp so that she could give him her money, so he wouldn't hurt her, so he would go away. She didn't notice that clenched fist swing purposefully toward her face. Bitch. What do you think you're doing? You effing think you can stop me from getting your purse? She felt a blinding flash of pain. The salty taste of blood filled her mouth. She was knocked to the ground by the blow, the weight of her body forcing him to release her waist. She no longer clutched her purse. The purse strap had twisted in Annie's arm when she fell, so it appeared to him that she was still clutching it. He kicked her hard in the stomach. Annie felt as if her insides had just exploded. A little bit of the breakfast she had on the airplane sprang into her mouth and mingled with the blood, causing her to gag. Annie was trying to understand what was happening. She was trying to think of a way to get away. Please don't hurt me anymore. Take my purse, take anything you want. Just please don't hurt me anymore. Please don't hurt me. She said out loud. Shut the F up, bitch. Gimme your effin' purse. He kicked her in the stomach again and she brought her knees up to her chest in a fetal position, desperately trying to protect herself. Mercifully, the strap on the purse broke. He left her alone, laying on the ground at his feet while rummaging through the purse. He grabbed the wallet. Effin' traveler's checks. 100 lousy dollars and some traveler's checks. Who the F does she think she is? Tony don't take traveler's checks. The thought of Tony not taking traveler's checks enraged him. So, he began to kick her as hard as he could in the side of the head. Everything turned black for Annie. She knew she was still there, behind the dumpster, and she knew that he was still kicking her, but she no longer felt any pain. She didn't feel the third kick, the one that caused her left side to turn numb and her memory to fail her. The kick that would end her search for the lost son and leave her, forever, in mid-sentence wondering what she was about to say. He was going to kick her again but saw she was already out cold. He didn't want to kill her. He learned that in prison, the cops wouldn't spend 10 minutes looking for a mugger. If all you did was beat the crap out of them, they wouldn't bother, but they would spend most of a day looking for a murder suspect. With my luck, this bitch is someone important. Someone who has some pull, and that means the cops will look until they find me. At this thought, he almost kicked her again, but stopped himself. He dumped the contents of the purse on the ground. Seeing the large vanilla envelope, he opened it and, discovering that it was only useless papers, he tossed it on the ground. Then he looked down at her to see if she might have anything else to offer him. Yay, she's out cold. Serves her right, she should know better than to come around here, showing off her money. Who does she think she is, anyway? Annie was completely unconscious now and didn't feel a thing when he broke her finger taking the wedding ring off. Tony will give me something for this. I know he'll give me something for this. The adrenaline that had replaced the dull ache in his stomach for the last 3 minutes, was beginning to subside. He needed to find Tony, maybe Tony would give him something for the traveler's checks. Anyway, Tony will give him something for the ring and the credit cards. With that settled in his mind, the man rolled up the ski mask so that it only covered his hair. He didn't notice the picture, laying on top of all the scattered papers. If he had looked down, he would have seen his picture. But he didn't. He stepped out around the dumpster and onto the street. He headed uptown to find Tony.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe and put a like.